Let's just ensure we have quorum here. I'll go in order how I see here. Mr. Martinez.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Ross. Miss Ross.
Miss Ross was having a little bit of problems with her sound.
Okay, just one moment. I did see Miss Ross come off of mute. Miss Ross, could you just try one more time and then we can come back if need be. Okay, I can't hear you, Miss Ross, but let's see. I'll circle back, and if we could get some assistance to Miss Ross, that'd be great. Next, I see Mr. Goddard.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Campbell-Gooch.
I'm here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Next, I see Mr. Sweeney.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Dr. Hildreth.
Dr. Hildreth says she's also having some issues with her sound.
Okay. Right.
So,
right there.
But she's present, but she's, yeah.
Mr. Witzel.
I am here.
Thank you. Welcome. And Mr. Hughes.
I'm also here.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes. I see Mr. Holloway.
I'm here.
Mr. Holloway, good afternoon. Right? With
Yes.
anyone else that I missed here that might be on the line? Members of the board. So
Dr. Lewis?
We're missing Dr. Lewis. Anyone else we're missing?
Dr. Lewis is here. Yeah, she's here, but we don't have her sound on for some reason.
Lewis doesn't appear on my, oh, there it is. Dr. Lewis? Did not see Dr. Lewis. Okay, so it seems that we have three members of the board, Dr. Lewis, Dr. Hildreth, and Ms. Ross, that are having technical difficulties. Should we pause here and see if we can, for 10 minutes, and see if we might be able to remedy these, or is that an issue? I'm sorry?
Dr. Hildreth her sound is up and working.
Okay, well, Dr. Hildreth, could you speak just so I can hear you?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome. Dr. Lewis, are you still experiencing difficulties?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, we can, Dr. Lewis. And what about Ms. Ross? Are you still experiencing issues, Ms. Ross? Yeah. Okay, so Ms. Ross is experiencing difficulties. Do we have, is there someone from the AB or tech side that could be helpful? What do we think is the best option here, Director Fisher?
I'm texting her to see, because she was working a moment ago. I'm going to text her to see if we can get her up and see what the problem is. And then everyone else who needs to mute, like I think Mr. Holloway needs to mute and be led to mute.
Okay, great.
Be instructed to mute. Let me try to reach Ms. Ross.
Okay, I see Mr. Holloway is now muted. Everyone else is muted except for Ms. Ross. I'm just trying to get connected here. Dr. Lewis, if you could also mute, that'd be fantastic. And then it appears we do indeed have quorum and full participation, barring that of technical difficulties. So with that, we're establishing quorum. I'll read the appeal statement here. Pursuant to the provisions of section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County Community Oversight Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of cert. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. Thank you. Next, I extend the floor to Mr. Pinkley to discuss the electronic meeting statement. Thank you.
So as we've done before with some of these board meetings, we'll just need to go over the governor, because of his executive order 16, which was passed in March. He suspended some of the in-person quorum requirements for electronic meetings. That executive order was only set to run through May 18th, but he has passed Executive Order 34, which has extended the ability to hold electronic meetings through the end of June. So all we need is a motion and second and a vote on holding an electronic meeting to conduct essential business to protect the safety and welfare of Tennesseans.
This is Drew Goddard, so move.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. In 1 second.
Second, this is Andres.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Any focused discussion? Thank you. All those in favor, I will actually do a call vote here. Mr. Campbell-Gooch?
Aye.
Mr. Goddard?
Aye.
Mr. Goddard?
Sorry, aye.
Thank you. Dr. Hildreth?
Aye.
Mr. Holloway? Mr. Holloway? Mr. Holloway, could you try your unmute yourself one more time? I see you unmuted, but I cannot hear you, Mr. Holloway. Continue to try to speak, though, and then I'll keep moving here. Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Thank you. Miss Ross, is she back up with us here? No. Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Witzel? Mr. Witzel?
Aye.
Thank you. Chair Davis, I vote as well. An affirmative aye as well. Motion carries. Let me thank you very much, Mr. Pinkley. Anything else on this before we move forward?
No.
Thank you. Let me just pause here. It seems some folks are having issues because we're going to have to take a vote right after this again. Mr. Holloway, could you try to unmute yourself again and speak?
Aye, can you hear me now?
Okay, we can hear you now, Mr. Holloway. So whatever you did just then was perfect. We could hear you just clear. Can you hear us okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And it seems we have everyone now. So we'll move to the approval of the minutes here. Is there a motion?
I move to approve. Hildreth.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Anyone second?
This is Drew Goddard, I second.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Any focused discussion? Feel free to use unmute yourself or use the raise hand. I can see you here. Okay. If not, we'll do a roll call vote here. Mr. Campbell-Gooch?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Goddard?
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Hildreth?
Aye.
Mr. Holloway?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Could you say your vote again, Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Ross? Once again. Oh. Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Witzel?
Aye.
Thank you. I vote, and Chair Davis vote in the affirmative as well. Thank you very much. Now to the chair remarks. I do not have a lot to share here because we're going to cover a majority of this here in this space. I do want to share the executive committee met last week, early last week. Many of in fact, all the things that you see here before you on the agenda were discussed during that meeting. I will pause here also and want to just share out. Later on, we'll hear from Director Fitchard, who will walk us through her report, but also through any new and upcoming or newly developed developments for us to be aware of. So I really do yield to those updates. And then before, or rather right after we do the executive director report, members of the executive committee, if there's anything that you feel that perhaps isn't listed here, because we try to be very careful to make sure everything discussed then was put on this agenda, please feel free to raise it at that time so that we can ensure we touch everything and everyone is aware of the same information. But Director Fitchard, are you on the line here? Or I know you were trying to help Ms. Ross as well.
Yes, I'm here. I'm still trying to assist her, but yes.
Okay, would you mind, I think it's most appropriate for you to welcome our guest speaker here for the day, and I give the floor to you there.
Sure. So today we have the Executive Director of the Department of Emergency Communications, Mr. Stephen Martini. And so we would like to thank you for being here with us. And if you would like to talk a little bit about your new role and some of the, the opportunities that we work together on in regards to the notification process.
Sure, Director Fitchard, I appreciate it. Chair Davis and board, I appreciate the opportunity to join you this afternoon to talk about our partnership and how we're going to coordinate moving forward to share critical information from the Department of Emergency Communications. I'm new in my role. I started March the 9th with Metro Nashville. I've been in Williamson County for the last 7 years, either at Brentwood or at a consolidated center with Williamson County and Franklin. And then before that, 10 years in Hamilton County, Chattanooga area doing public safety communications there. So excited about this opportunity and our partnership of what we're working to accomplish together. Since I've been in this role, I've had the opportunity to engage with Director Fitchard to understand some of the work that was done in the fall regarding notifications for what I would call high priority, low frequency incidents. High priority, low frequency incidents in our world are those tornadoes, officer involved shootings or use of force incidents or whatnot, like we're talking about here, SWAT call outs that says, they don't happen all the time, but when they do happen, it's critical that we make appropriate notifications. We handle those situations consistently and accurately every time. With that being a reality in those situations, high priority, low frequency would also include an active shooter event or perhaps a large multi-unit structure fire. In those moments, it's very critical we're notifying a lot of people, right? Not just the resources that we're dispatching to the scene to handle the incident and try to bring some calmness and chaos, but also those supporting folks that are responding also to that incident. So we have 170 operational personnel at the Department of Emergency Communications. There's another 20 to 25 in the support side. Trying to get all 170 of those individuals all the time to do things the same way every time consistently for every incident is challenging at best. So really what has become really the industry standard is we look for opportunities to leverage technology to accomplish those goals. If you have a group of people that expect to be notified of a particular event or incident or milestone, and this has been true across the board for a variety of incidents. I would think of fire, for example. If you get a report of a structure fire, there's a lot of times that could be fog or mist off the roof of a house, and they get out there and determine it's not really a structure fire or it's food on the stove or whatever. There are multiple reports that may differ from what they find on scene that we don't necessarily want to notify the battalion chief, command staff level of the department of every report of a structure fire. They want to be notified when there actually is a structure fire, when we find one. And it's some of those situations that are similar to what we're discussing here with your board. It says, I don't want to necessarily be notified of the incident when it starts. I want to be notified of an incident that has something specifically interesting or a milestone that is something we want to be notified that may occur in the middle of the incident or may occur toward the end of the incident. So we're working with our computer-aided dispatch vendor to create those notifications. It's not something they have in place now, but it is something I'm familiar with at previous computer-aided dispatch vendors that I've worked with in the past. And I'm having those deep conversations. We're looking currently on how to configure our software. Maybe a little bit of what we can do with our software the way it is now, or it may require the technicians or the software technicians and engineers that are working with the company to create a new solution, working together to create a new notification that doesn't exist today, but honestly one that I would think that will best serve not only this board, but a variety of those folks that we partner with to send alerts on certain milestones. So that's kind of where we're at. If I was overly vague or overly confusing, let me know. I'm glad to speak more specifically to it. And I just appreciate the opportunity to join the board today for a little discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Martini. I want to thank you first and foremost for extending, before, quite frankly, we got a chance to welcome you, for extending your time to come and speak with the board. We greatly appreciate it. I do want to yield to the board here if anyone has any questions or they might want to raise here. So please feel free. Mr. Sweeney.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Martini. Couple questions for you. As you're talking about the need for new software or software improvements in order to be able to give us the types of quality of notice that we're asking for, in light of everything that's going on in the city and the budget issues, is this something that you anticipate is going to be doable in the very short term? Or is there something else that we need to consider to make sure that we're getting the notices that we need before there's a software fix?
Sure, I appreciate you asking that question because it's a real issue. I'm going to hit this twofold. One is I don't expect us to only make quality notifications once we have a technology solution in place. We're working now with our supervisors to make sure that they are aware of what the board expects to be notified of, and then we're making those notifications. I think since I've been here and we've been talking about this, I'm batting 500, so I've got 1 out of 2 so far that were effectively done to what I would expect to have occurred. And then after we met on the first one and said this is what happened and this is what we expected, I think the second notification went much more smoothly. I expect those notifications to come from our team, whether there's a technology solution in place or not, to come effectively and consistently. And working with our frontline telecommunicators to notify supervisors who will then in turn make those notifications to all the relevant parties, including this board. So that's step one, is I expect this to happen whether technology solution happens or not. Step two is about $9 million of our $23 million budget in the department, so about 35% of our operating budget is actually funded from 911 surcharges we all pay on our phone bills. I think it's $1.30 something, $1.16, $1.50 some in that area. And so that money that comes to a separate board, to the Emergency Communications District Board, helps supply and support our technology, our phone system, our computer-aided dispatch system, those resources we use to do the job that we're tasked to do. Because of that, that 911 surcharge really isn't impacted by some of the economic slump and challenges that we've seen and the city may be focusing on right now that really focuses our salary side. So all the more, in my opinion, that we focus this solution to the technology that is not dependent on how long my trainee has been here, what our staffing impacts may be. We've configured the computer system, or will work to configure the computer system, that whenever these incidents occur and we identify those milestones inside of our software, that notification is going every time consistently without question. And I believe we do have the funding to have those conversations with our computer-aided dispatch vendors. My last point to that is there are smaller vendors working in smaller agencies that are doing a better job of notification than we're seeing currently with our current partner. And I've raised that point with them. So I don't expect to be charged for this at all. I think this is bringing their product up to a level of competition with others that are already doing what we expect.
Thank you. Two other questions of things that have come up over time regarding ECD. One has to do with the access to the ECD records. Do you know whether there's any law that makes your records or your recordings confidential as distinguished from public records?
There are HIPAA regulations that require us to take out aspects that would identify a patient involved in a medical incident, their name or any identifying aspects of who that person is. We can leave in age and gender and those things, but anything that would specifically identify a person related to a medical incident has to be redacted. And then any sort of incident with active, ongoing litigation, any sort of open investigation or I say litigation, that's not accurate. Any ongoing investigation that's active would also be held. And that's not, that second part is not necessarily by us. That is through law enforcement that would impact that record.
So if a call comes in 10 minutes from now, is that record, as you then receive it before anything else has happened, a public record that if somebody made a request for, they could obtain?
Our typical process when we receive those requests, and then we receive probably 3 to 4 to 5 of those, honestly, any given day, whether it's a media request or an attorney's office or whatnot, we'll hold a recording. It is sent to the appropriate department, whether that's the police department or the fire department, whether it's a fire call or a law enforcement call. And we advise we've received this request, and we ask if there's any ongoing or active investigation that would prevent this from being eligible for public release. And if there's not a delay, if there's not a reason why we should hold the call, if there's not that qualifying incident that says it's part of an active investigation, then it is sent to either the individual who requested it or the media or the attorney's office, whatever that may be.
Okay. And is that held that way as a matter of policy, or you understand it a matter of law?
That is a matter of law, I believe, and that's not something that I've been here 90 days, a little less than 90 days here at the department, but been doing public safety communications in Tennessee for 16 years, and that's been consistent across each of the 4 public safety communication centers I've worked at, as directed by the Open Records Act in the state of Tennessee.
Okay. And then one more question for you.
Sure.
A month ago, the board issued a public policy advisory report where one of the recommendations involved ECD. Have you seen that policy recommendation? And if you have, is there a schedule by which you intend to respond to our recommendation?
I believe, and Director Fitchard, I'm going to have to defer and / apologize. I believe I have seen an email from Director Fitchard that had a report attached. It was multiple pages, and I haven't had a chance to meet y'all yet. And in the middle of the tornado response and the coronavirus whatnot, it sat for a minute, and I've not sat and dug through that. So it could be in that report that Director Fitchard has sent me, and I've not reviewed it as of today. But it will become a priority if there's something in there that is requiring action on our side. And I will get back to this board by the end of the week.
There is, and that would be
okay.
Very good. And we'd appreciate your response to our recommendation.
Absolutely. I'll read that today and respond to Director Fitchard by the end of this week. I apologize for the delay.
Excellent. That's all that I have. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Any other members of the board? Mr. Campbell-Gooch?
Yes, I had a question around the limitations that was just mentioned. especially around like open cases. So, is there a circumstance to where law enforcement will be denied?
A circumstance when law enforcement would deny a request or that they would say don't release it and we release it anyway. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm saying like if law enforcement came to your department and asked you for a very specific record, is there a situation in which they would be denied access to their record?
No, there's not a situation I can think of that if law enforcement came to us and said, we're doing an investigation and we need to get a copy of this phone call, for example. And forgive me again, This is a lack of understanding on my side, maybe of how our procedures work, and I'll defer internally and get an answer to that as well. They should have access to their radio recordings anyway, automatically. We typically hold phone calls on our side because of the medical nature. If there's a medical nature call that a law enforcement officer just doesn't even know, then we've overshared HIPAA information on the law side. To the same side, we don't share that with the fire side, where there may be an ongoing active criminal investigation associated with a 911 call that a firefighter may not need to hear, for example. So typically we hold the calls ourselves, and then we'll release them when you have a detective or somebody, maybe a fire marshal on the arson investigator on the fire side, who says, I need this copy of this call for this investigation.
Mm-hmm. And the reason that I'm asking is because it seems like it would be increasingly difficult for us to hold a law enforcement accountable if we literally don't have access to the same materials. I know that you're not in charge of that. I don't think anyone on this call is, but I just wanted to make that statement and clear. And then also, would it be easier on your department if we just had a blanket? What can I say? Just like blanket requirement to notify us.
And we do have those for notifications. I do have a good solid list. Well, I haven't moved and my lights went out. So there we go. I'm sitting in the dark. We do have a list provided by Director Pitchard that says there's the expectation to be notified on certain events. I provided that list to our supervisors and through the operations side, so they're aware of that. And what we really want to do is take that list and get a little more granular into our technology, so that when we say a vehicle pursuit has happened, or we dispatch an ambulance to a situation where a suspect's in custody, or tasers were deployed, or shots were fired, any of those trigger events, notification at that milestone, that notification is sent to a specific group defined by y'all at the incident, at the moment that it occurs.
Then my last question, real quick, is that it's like when we're thinking about a solution, if we can figure out a way to trim it out, you know what I'm saying? It seems to be a lot of like requesting records, trying to get those records, trying to get denied, and then things like that. So that's just like a personal favor for me, if we can trim it up and make it as fast as possible, because it doesn't really seem like we'll ever have like direct access to the actual information that we need. So I just wanted to lay that here, and I know that's like some bureaucracy that don't have nothing to do with you. I just wanted to state while we're having this conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate you very much, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. I'll tell you, I believe the bureaucracy, there's people behind all that stuff, right? So let's take the red tape out and let's have people sit down at the table and talk about how we can make it work. So let's figure out where the challenges are, the bumps are, and where we can smooth them.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. Ms. Ross. Ms. Ross, I see you unmuted, but we can't hear you currently.
Director? I do have another comment or question.
Yeah, yep. Just one moment, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. Let's see if we can get Ms. Ross on, and if not, we'll defer here. Director Fisher, did it seem like we had gotten that fixed with Ms. Ross?
Yeah, I sent Ms. Ross the link to call in as well, and so her hand may be raised. Maybe not on purpose. I'm not really sure what's happening.
Okay, I'm going to go to Mr. Campbell-Gooch here for the follow-up, and then if you could just let me know, we can circle back to Ms. Ross.
My first question is for like the board members, because I literally can't remember and I don't have the MOU in front of me. Do we have in the MOU a place where we talk about records?
do not know that. Mr. Pinkley, do you have anything on that too? I'm not aware of it.
I'm in the process of pulling it up.
Okay, because I'm just thinking like maybe this is a situation to where we can clearly define our relationships by installing an MOU, even if it's just like as simple as something that can just like clarify to anybody that is either coming into this board or coming onto your staff. Maybe that's a place where we can just clearly define our relationships and how our bodies interact with each other.
Yeah, that's an opportunity. If you allow, and Chair, if you allow me to respond.
Please.
I understand that there is not an MOU, and I could be wrong here, but I've done a little research on it. I don't think there's an MOU between the Department of Emergency Communications and the Community Oversight Board. I believe there is one between the Police Department and the Community Oversight Board, but we function as a separate department, a standalone department. And honestly, I don't have an MOU with any of the other city departments. I don't have one with the Police Department, the Fire Department, or General Services, or whoever else we may engage with. And I wouldn't want to put one in place with y'all to restrict what we would do together. I would hope that we would work as well together with your department as we do any other Nashville Metro department. So I'm hopeful that really, it's good enough. If you say this is what we want, I don't need to go back to a binding agreement to make me do it. We're going to agree and we're going to go forward.
Thank you. Mr. Cambaguchi, anything else on that?
Yeah, I was just going to respond really quickly. Like, I appreciate your willingness to work, and also that hasn't been the experience of our board, especially when it's been like working with traditional CJ stakeholders in this space.
I understand.
So it would help me to like know what our relationship clearly is and to know what we should be expecting out of your department, so that then we can hold each other accountable in building our relationship together. I
completely understand.
Ms. Ross, are you back on the line with us? Okay. While I have a moment here, I just want to ask board members, if your camera's currently on, please turn it off. It is per Metro guidelines here that we need to keep our cameras off. And so, Ms. Ross, I see you unmuted. Director Fisher, we'll just keep working with it. And Director Fisher, there's someone else on your staff can be helpful there too. Maybe if you can share Ms. Ross's number with them as we continue to move forward and progress here with the agenda. I don't want you to have to play all the instruments in the band here, but I do want to make sure we can get Ms. Ross on the line. And
okay, I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and send her number to Brinzy. If Ms. Thompson can help her, that would be great. Okay, great. And Dr. Hildreth, could you disconnect your video? That would be fantastic. And then are there any other questions from the board here for Mr. Martini? Mr. Martini, I will say to you, we as a board, naturally, we come together, continue to both just hear from our director and executive staff there in MNCO, but also hear from the community. And so we love and appreciate when we can keep an open line of communication, and welcome from you also, if there are ideas you hear of or are made aware of as we continue to improve this relationship. I should just echo that where Mr. Cambaguchi is coming from is that the spaces of us finding that we've had more success when things are enumerated than when we are simply working on good faith. And we hope that we can get to a space where that's not necessary. But sure, this is a wonderful step, I feel, in the right direction of transparency and getting answers to questions, which goes a long way. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I look forward to future conversations and building this relationship.
Perfect. Thank you. And keep moving.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll move now to the next agenda item here. We are going to extend the floor here to Director Fitchett for the executive, the chair, the executive director report, rather. So Director Fitchett.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad that you're here. We have a lot to cover. we did cover a lot of the material extensively in the executive committee meeting. And so I sent you that link so that you guys can just refresh on some of the stuff that came up. I'm going to cover it. Once I cover it, if you have questions, I will pause during the issues that I think are super important. Just have some patience with me. We are still telecommuting. We are working from home, and we'll continue that for the rest of the month. Assistant Director Clausey and I attended the meeting for department heads that was hosted by Kristen Wilson from the mayor's office to discuss next steps to open Metro's non-essential offices. And we also have received some guidance from Metro Human Resources, and Mr. Clausey and I will be working towards that in the next few weeks, in the coming weeks, to determine how we can go about doing that safely and also adhering to Metro's guidelines. We also, the office has attended multiple training webinars and roundtable discussions with other oversight agencies across the country. And most of the topics is surrounding policing and incarceration during the pandemic. Those have been really helpful to get a clear understanding what is happening in other cities, because, you know, sometimes what we think is happening in Nashville is just unique to Nashville, but it's really not. I think that other agencies across the country are experiencing some of the same hurdles that we are experiencing. And I want to move into the community outreach section. We did a public survey last month. We got around 24 responses. Some of the positive takeaways in that was that most participants believe that the work of the COB can decrease police misconduct. And most participants thought that the COB was good for Davidson County. Some of the policing concerns were proper training and fair oversight without political and/or anti-law enforcement agendas, not enough officers for the growth in the city, and not having authentic community engagement is a concern. This is from one participant. That participant said we must have true community policing if we ever are going to have better relations between the police and the community, especially communities of color. We must stop racial profiling and harassment by the police. I thought the survey did well because we've had a survey in the past and we only got a few participants. So we'll continue to work on ways to connect with the community while we are working in telecommuting. So we have some ideas set in place. So I want to move into the complaint section. So the MNCO continues to receive calls from the public to initiate complaints of alleged misconduct by MNPD officers. We received 6 investigative complaints since the last board meeting. There's 3 that are pending that we have not added to this list, and we will talk about those 3 in a moment. And then in the month of May, up until May 22nd, which was Friday, we have received 20 non-complaint calls for service. And those non-complaint calls for service could come in from the media. They could come in from Nashville residents or just people in general who might need some help or to be referred to another department. They might have had the number wrong, or they may have just wanted to make some comments to us. So I'm going to move into the in-custody death. So there was an in-custody death that occurred on Monday, May the 11th. Monday, May the 11th, I received a message from the Nashville scene writer, Stephen Hill, that notified me that there was an in-custody death and that he had done an article on it in the Nashville scene. I was, of course, shocked to learn that Mr. Gabriel Hines died while he was in DCSO custody on February the 9th. And there was also an allegation that MNPD used excessive force against Mr. Hines, and that was raised by his co-defendants. I was not notified by MNPD or the DA that an in-custody death had occurred, and that there was also this allegation of use of force. I brought that up to the executive committee. We talked about our jurisdiction authority in regards to that incident, and it was agreed upon that since there was this allegation of excessive force, that we did have jurisdiction to investigate this case. When I met with General Funk on Friday, May the 22nd, he gave us a brief update on that case. And And he also gave me a short background, but he also said that his notification was not timely as well. And he also didn't contact us because he thought that MMPD would handle that type of notification because we have this MOU agreement with Metro Police Department. He also said that the case had been referred to TBI and that TBI still was investigating and the case was open. And then we're going to move on unless you guys want to ask questions about that. But if not, we're going to move on to the next incident, which was the officer-involved shooting and the communications, the DEC notifications that came. And Mr. Martini mentioned that. So what happened in this?
Just one moment. Let's pause to leave members of the board.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Campbell-Gooch.
I had like a really quick comment about the survey. We know like the access to services are also a piece of public safety as well. So I'm just curious about like how the survey was constructed. Was it like a questionnaire? I'm trying to see it in my head.
Yes, it was a questionnaire. I think it had 13 questions on there. The questions that we asked were mostly not around access of services, but mostly about constituents, what they have experienced in policing. And some of the questions were multiple choice, or they rated it. And then also like it was a number, like 1 to 5. And then some of the questions were in regards to, they had to actually write out that, like, what was their experience with policing? Like, what would ideal policing look like in their neighborhood or in their community? And let's see here. We had questions that pertain to what they thought about the COB. Was it useful? Those are the types of things that were on the survey.
Okay. I think I see it better because I know that I've ran into like a similar response, especially around communities and like what it means to have a safe community. The majority of people I've had that conversation with have like leaned directly into wanting more police, but then through a little bit of education have come to the conclusion that police aren't the only way to secure public safety. And by putting all of that pressure on police, we actually end up with a community that is over-policed. So that's where that concern is coming from, because we know like community police are still police, and we don't really need any more police. We need more services. But another question, I wanted to hear more about DA Funk's not getting communication from his people that there was an in custody death. That is extremely like alarming. And so I just wanted to pause and put a note there and see if there was more detail around that. Or did he give you anything else?
Well, because it's an open case, he didn't get deep into it. He said that they learned of, apparently this gentleman was arrested on February the 4th, and he was taken to the hospital. And at some point when he was taken to the hospital on February the 9th, he died. And then of course they were notified, I want to say about a few days later about this incident. And that is when that notification came to them. And at that point, they went through a process of trying to figure out what was going on and, dealing with interviewing people. And then he referred it to TBI. And he didn't really get deep into it because it's an open investigation currently.
Okay. And then this is kind of like just like my last statement and my last comment, just around these like seemingly like fractured, I want to say. I know it's not the right word, relationships that we're having with other bodies. I'm finding that like extremely like disheartening. And so like wherever we need to like work directly to make sure like we're getting the streamlined information directly to you so that the office can work in its greatest capacity, please let me know. Because I thought that the DA would be able to get us information whenever we needed it. And it still seems like there's a tortoise effect happening.
Yeah, I think that of course, the district attorney's office has an MOU with, between the district attorney, the TBI, and the police department. And so since we're not really involved in that, I don't, I appreciate that. So thank you. I will keep you notified.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell-Gooch. Mr. Martinez.
I was also going to follow up on the point about the district attorney's office not notifying us. Is in the future, have they offered to notify us regardless of whether they think that MNPD is going to notify us? I mean, I think that's something that we should work out with them because obviously we can't rely on, or we haven't been able to rely on MNPD to notify us on certain things like this.
Yeah, that's a good question. He didn't commit to that, but we did have a very, I think, a really good conversation in regards to what it is that the MNCO needs to get our work done. And so that is, we're supposed to have a follow-up discussion. And I think that that is something that I can definitely bring up and talk to them about because it's not that difficult to notify us that there is an ongoing investigation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Any additional questions or comments on this before Director Pitcher proceeds? Not, please, Director Pitcher. Okay.
So as we move on into the officer-involved shooting emergency and emergency communication notifications, these two things, kind of happened on the same day. So on Monday, May the 11th, I sent an email to the new executive director, which is Mr. Martini, and he might have touched on this, with concern that we had not been receiving ECC incidents, and we hadn't received any since April the 16th. And so almost a month in, and I was like, I know that, I saw a few things on, social media, on the television, in the news that should have triggered a notification to us. And so I had been keeping up with that. So I sent him an email telling him that that if we had, that these are some occurrences that we hadn't been notified since, the April the 16th date, and that if a critical incident happened in this city and we weren't notified, that would be a travesty. He followed up with me about my concerns, and, I gave him some information about what we needed. The next day, I followed up with him and told him the types of notifications that we needed, which were officer-involved shootings, officer-involved use of force. That would be the K-9, taser deployment, hospitalizations of citizens who were involved with fights or had injuries, and also in-custody deaths, vehicle pursuits, vehicle crashes involving MNPD and citizens, as well as any SWAT team deployment. So that was on Tuesday, May the 12th. On Wednesday, May the 13th, I received an ECC notification at 9:48 p.m. that stated a domestic incident had taken place, and I included the incident type in my report. But that notification was just about a domestic related incident. There was nothing in that message that would have triggered that a critical incident had taken place in with an officer and a citizen. So, of course, when we get these notifications, if they don't trigger anything, we just, so we use it as, just knowledge. So on Thursday morning at 6:21 in the morning, I received an email from Mr. Martini that included an attachment of the shooting incident that MNPD Don Aaron sent out in a media release. He sent it out around 1:55 in the morning. But after reviewing the email and the attached information, that's when I realized that there was a shooting involved in this. And so I sent an email to Mr. Martini. I included Mr. Bunton and also Deputy Chief Hager in my inquiry as to why we were not properly notified of this critical incident and how they would help and remedy this error. And then, of course, I contacted John Bunton directly. I called him to tell him that there was a critical incident that happened and we were not notified. And so he set up a conference call that same afternoon with myself and Mr. Martini and Mr. Clausey, so that we could come up with some type of solutions to fix the notification problem. And, that happened, and Mr. Martini was, very gracious in helping to figure out what it is and what it is that we needed and how we would go about it. He also added Mr. Clausey to the notification process, and that worked out really well. On Monday, May the 18th, Mr. Martini sent a follow-up email just talking about the steps that he's taken to try to remedy this problem and how he had reached out to his vendor, and he was working on this new software and automation type of thing. And so that's still in the works, as he explained today. And so we have received the notifications properly since that time. Is there any other questions about that before I move on? All right.
Mr. Martinez?
It looks like I hadn't unraised my hand. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Dr. Fisher.
Okay. So the next incident right after that, I want to kind of unpack this a little bit for you. So there was a shooting. It happened on May the 13th. On May the 14th, I met with Mr. Bunton and Mr. Martini just to work on the notification process. And then we also decided to move ahead and request the police records that involved this police officer shooting. So we did that like the next day. So one of the investigators went ahead and requested the dispatcher radio calls, the arrest record, the incident, and the CAD reports. And we also requested all of the ECC records. The CAD reports, those records. So we were denied records by MMPD and ECC. The only records that we were able to obtain were the record of the actual criminal warrants, and those came from the criminal clerk's office, and those are public information. And when we got this denial. Let me start back. When we got the affidavit, we read through the affidavits. There was 3 affidavits for the gentleman. The affidavits, one of the affidavits that said I think it was the assault on a police officer, it did not include the shooting. So there was no notification or notice or anything written inside the affidavit that would have, said that there had been an officer involved shooting. That raised some concerns for me. So I contacted Deputy Chief Hager. And when I sent the information to Deputy Chief Hager, and I asked him why wasn't this information included, he referred me to the district attorney's office. So I, sent an email to District Attorney General Funk, and he wanted to meet and discuss it in person. And so when we did meet in person, I explained to District Attorney Funk and that Deputy Chief Hager had referred my question of why the police officer involved shooting that took place on May 13th wasn't documented in the criminal warrant, and sent me to the DA's office for answers. And he said that the information didn't have to be included to make probable cause for the case, but because the shooting would come out in the criminal court cases, in the hearings. I mentioned that for transparency and accountability, that was something that MMPD should include in the warrants. And he stated he understood how that could be perceived. And so at that point, we began to talk a little bit more about record sharing, because this is an issue. We have a police officer involved shooting, and we're not able to get the basic records to even begin an investigation. So he spent time helping us to understand. It was myself, Mr. Clausey, and Mr. Pinkley. He spent time helping us to understand how the record sharing was set up between he and the MMPD. And we also discussed the denial of records from MPD and them referring us to the DA's office to get approval for MMPD to release the records. We discussed the denial of the CAD reports that were coming from the DA's office. I also pointed out that our investigations are administrative in nature and not criminal investigations, and that we can't move forward on our cases without the necessary records. And those are the same records that OPA has access to while conducting their administrative investigations. He also explained that there was some sort of agreement between Metro Nashville Police Department and the DA's office that restricts his ability to provide those records without the approval from MMPD. And I believe that those records come from the ARMS system, which is the police case management system. And so with that, what we did, myself and Mr. Pinkley and Mr. Clausey, we decided to reach out to Bob Cooper, who is the head of Metro Legal, for guidance on how to obtain records without having to use subpoena power to get that information. And then I want to just note on that I spoke to John Bunton today regarding the problem that we are facing in obtaining the records, and he listened to the challenges and about the steps that we have taken to reach out to Metro Legal and General Funk were good steps, and stated that he would reach out to Bob Cooper as well when he returned from vacation next week. You want to add? I'm gonna.
Yeah, Mr. Campbell Gooch here.
Did any of the people that you corresponded with offer any action steps on what we could be doing to proactively solve these issues?
Yeah, we had already reached out to Mr. Cooper, so that was the only thing. I think General Funk did mention that he would, he was going to do what he could to help us, and if that meant reaching out to other agencies, along with Metro Legal, so that we could gain more access, that he was willing to meet with me and our team and talk through it again and see if we could do that, and also meet with Bob Cooper and maybe myself, and General Funk and Bob Cooper to discuss these issues.
What do you think personally should be a next step from this board or from your interactions with them?
Well, I think that what we did when we sent the information to Bob Cooper, we spelled it out. And I'm going to let Mr. Pinkley come in and tell you what the letter said to Mr. Cooper, because I think it's important. There was a lot of rich information in that letter. So, Mr. Pinkley, if you'd like to jump in here, that would be helpful.
Sure. So essentially what was in the letter, without having to pull it up, was that we explained to Mr. Cooper some of the issues that we had been having, like Director Fitcher has said, and we kind of outlined the question of whether or not there was a way to get records without necessarily having to subpoena them through the city council or through the Metro Council. The way that our organization is set up, it's set up to mirror the same function that OPA has. Since OPA has the records directly available to them because they're a part of MNPD, it doesn't really make sense that we're treated as an outside organization since we're all within the Metro government. So one of the questions that we kind of posed to Mr. Cooper was whether or not there was a possibility that we could structure the Metro government so that we have the same access that OPA has without having to go through the council every single time that we need records. It just seems like it would be burdensome for the council to have to respond to subpoena requests every time there's a complaint. So one of the arguments that we made in support of us just having direct access is they keep relying on the fact that these records are confidential based on criminal procedure rules. Our argument is that I feel like the legislature has already taken into account that we are going to need access to confidential records, which is why we have our confidentiality statute in the code. So the response that we got back from Mr. Cooper on Friday was that he wanted to take some time to think about it. And then, hopefully he'll be in touch with us soon and we can find a way to move forward from there.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments here from the board? Ms.
Yes,
Mr.
Holloway.
Okay, Mr. Holloway, feel free, and then after that, Mr. Sweeney.
I think we're going in the right direction. Just keep plugging at it. But they always told me that a dead man does not tell lies. And so they realize that. So they need to cooperate with us so we can help clear up the matter and get the full investigation on it.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Mr. Sweeney.
Couple questions. We were talking about mirroring what OPA does. Do we know whether in situations like this officer-involved shooting that OPA does get involved automatically regardless of the fact that there's a TBI investigation going on?
Well, that was a question that I sent out to Mr. Clausey to check what their process was in this. And Mr. Clausey, you want to speak on that?
Sure. I talked with Kathy Morante with OPA, and she told me that on this particular shooting, and there have been two lately, but let's just talk about the way they normally work. The way they normally function is that when there is something like this, she and her lieutenant and an investigator will respond. They will do an investigation because they're, like us, doing an administrative investigation. Their investigation, if the TBI is called in, is different than what the TBI is doing. They're looking at policy violations that officers committed as opposed to was the use of force justified. If the TBI is not called in, then they just immediately do the investigation from start to finish. If the TBI is called in, they work collaboratively with the TBI to make sure that any investigative interviews or processes that they are going to do on the OPA side does not interfere with anything on the TBI side. So they work in collaboration to make sure that those investigations go smoothly, although yes, they do them together.
And I'd like to add, thank you, Mr. Clausey. I'd like to add to that remember that some of this is already spelled out in the MOU between TBI and the Metro Police Department.
Mr. Sweeney, is your hand still raised here?
It is, but it shouldn't have been.
Okay, no problem. Director Fisher?
Okay. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Mr. Campbell Gooch, I just saw your name.
I wanted to say, like, as a form of action with this, I think there's a lot of opportunity to coordinate with the city council, because if it's a thing to where, and I know this is a lot of work, but it was mentioned earlier, I think, but if it's a thing to where we need to constantly be subpoenaing them, I'd rather do that than to just have to keep talking to different people over and over again to try to get the information. So I'm just like letting folks on the board and the staff know that I prefer to just like constantly be doing that action, even if it's annoying and it's pressuring people into doing something. Because I don't want to continuously have to talk to separate bodies when we're supposed to be all in the same boat. I just wanted to say that. And then also, I think another action item could be talking directly to the minority caucus with city council and other civil rights organizations on the ground, because this is a violation of what the community has been working for. So I just wanted to make that known.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I documented that, and I think those are good ideas as well. Moving ahead to MDHA and an MHRC meeting. So I received an email from Community Advocates on Tuesday, May the 12th. The email was also sent to Governor Bill Lee, Mayor John Cooper, Chief Steve Anderson, Dr. Jahanger, and several others, and including Executive Director Jim Harbison, in regards to some issues surrounding the COVID testing. And a key issue that was an issue was the deployment of the National Guard to MDHA properties to test residents. And advocates wanted to know if the messaging around the testing informed residents that the participation was voluntary, not mandatory, and also that if they tested positive, that their positive test results would be shared with MMPD. And so in collaboration with the, they wanted, in addition to that, they wanted the community advocates. They suggested that the Metro National Community Oversight Board, the Metro Department of Health, and other oversight agencies within Metro be involved in the planning, the monitoring, and managing of the active patient list to make sure that it was properly managed and handled. So on Wednesday, May 13th, Director Mel Fowler-Green of the Human Relations Commission and myself, we met with Mr. Harbison of MDHA just so that we could determine what was happening with the testing at the MDHA properties, and also just let him know about the questions that the community had raised and to get some understanding of, the next steps for him. So he was willing to talk to the community about what was happening. And so we set up we hosted like a little informational where community members could call in to ask him questions directly in regards to the National Guard being out at MDHA property. On that same day, after, having some, discussion about it, Ms. Fowler-Green, Executive Director Fowler-Green, and myself sent a joint letter to the mayor, the chief of police.
Director Fisher, just one moment. I think we're having Director Fisher,
Dr. Caldwell,
Director Fisher,
and
Director Fisher,
Executive Director Renee Pratt.
Can another member of the board unmute? Just tell me, can you hear me clearly right now?
Yes,
we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Director Fisher, was she choppy on your end? That's why I interjected here.
Yes.
Yes, she was.
Yeah, Director Fisher.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is that clearer?
Yep, much clearer. Yep, yeah. Please,
okay.
If you can, just starting from the top.
I'm sorry.
Going with the dates of the letter was sent to the mayor's office.
Okay, sorry about that. On Wednesday, May 13th, Director Fowler-Green and myself sent a joint letter to the mayor, the chief of police, Dr. Jahangir, Dr. Caldwell, and the social services director, Renee Pratt, raising civil rights concerns about several policies and recent actions across Metro related to the coronavirus pandemic. I also included that letter in your package, and we have not had any response to that joint effort. As of today, I was notified that the Tennessean reported that the practice of sharing the positive test results would end at the end of May. But the question that, Director Fowler-Green and myself had is the fact that did not include, it didn't really determine or give us information in regards to the Metro Health Department sharing their information with MMPD and the DEC, because the Metro Police Department and the Metro Health Department never had that agreement, that MOU with the state. They opted out of it. So we are not aware at this point if, in fact, that will continue on with the information sharing. And so a follow-up letter was sent out this afternoon to the same parties asking them to respond to us. Any questions about this?
Dr. Lewis?
So the state has decided to stop doing this, and Metro says that they are reconsidering the sharing of that information as well as of today.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Mr. Campbell-Gooch.
I might have missed this, Director Fisher, but has anyone talked to you or the staff at all about overseeing that transfer of information?
No, we haven't had any, no one has contacted me about that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have one question, or maybe just a clarification. As it relates to the sharing of this information and the agreement with the MOU, specifically between the governor's office and the state's law enforcement officials, was there any prefacing? Was there any clarification regarding why the sharing of that information is necessary? It appears that the concern for many in the community was really just based in the fact that there was a lot of vague information, not a lot of clarity and ambiguity around why it is that information like that was being shared in the first place. Was there any information that was provided either to you, the chair, or to the executive director as to the rationale for why that information was being shared in the first place? Or is that something that that was more just the prerogative of the governor that has now shifted and apparently is being reconsidered?
So yeah, there wasn't any notification to me. So when I first got the email from the community advocates, I want to say it was on that the day after that, on the 13th, or it might have been the 14th. There was a lot going on that week. I sent an email to Deputy Chief Hagar asking him for any information surrounding this particular incident, this instance where they are sharing information. I asked him for any memos, any MOUs, any type of policy changes, any type of roll call briefings, and then I asked him some questions surrounding it. And he sent an email back that said that they were keeping the information confidential. He sent policy information, and he also sent a roll call briefing to me. And in the roll call briefing, it stated that this particular sharing of information started on April the 1st, and that the sharing was to protect, law enforcement officers so that they would, if they got a call or had any contact with a person, that they would be able to protect themselves and use, use PPE to protect themselves from a person that might have been positive with the COVID-19. And so that was the only information that I received.
I see. Thank you very much for sharing that, Director Fisher. My concern, however, is that during in the environment in which we now are currently finding ourselves in an evolving and ongoing worldwide pandemic, my thinking would be that an individual who's serving in law enforcement or a first responder of any kind would basically see as a part of their immediate response or their regular uniform or regular practice to be wearing PPE in interactions with the public to begin with. And so the idea that there needed to be some sort of a special memorandum or a special exchanging of information with regard to individuals who might test positive for COVID-19 is concerning to me, because I would think that on every call, an individual who's a first responder or especially someone in law enforcement who might have interaction with a member of the public would be automatically outfitted with PPE. And so using that as some sort of a justification for why it is that information would need to be shared is frankly a little bit confusing, maybe a little disconcerting. But I'm pleased to hear that at the very least there is a conversation around whether or not the sharing of that information is likely to go forward. And it's wonderful to hear that there is at least some clarification regarding what is happening now and why it is that we're raising these questions. And I appreciate you entertaining the opportunity to ask some clarifying questions around. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Anyone else? Director Fisher.
All right. So moving along to the officer-involved shooting that happened last week on Thursday, May 21st. So on Thursday, May 21st, myself and Assistant Director Chris Clausey received an ECC notification at 9:30 p.m. that stated an officer was shot and that a suspect was not in custody. A few minutes later, like a minute or two later, a short time later, we received the multiple notifications that a suspect was shot by officers while attempting to apprehend. So I phoned Mr. Clausey and I asked him to contact the DEC manager on duty to get more information about the incident. And so he got as much information as he could. We were able to discuss it. We got, we decided to where the location was and where we would meet. And we both arrived at the location at approximately 10:30 p.m. And once we were on the scene, we were directed to a place that we could safely stand. Now, where we were standing was on top of the interstate. So we were on the I can't really picture, I can picture it, but we were on the interstate, above the interstate, but we were kind of like, we were a really good distance away from the crime scene. We couldn't actually even see the blue lights because it was underneath us. We were on the overpass and it was underneath us around a curve. And so we were just a very long way from the crime scene. And so Deputy Chief Huggins came up, he talked to us, briefed us a little bit about what happened. And, we asked, could we go down there? He said, no, this is a TBI scene. And so not soon after that, a TBI agent in charge arrived on the scene and he briefed us again. He shared his contact information with us. And he also relayed a little bit of, this was a new process for him. He wasn't really clear what was going on. And then he also said that the crime scene agents were on their way. So we stood on that location probably for an hour, thinking that someone would come back and talk to us. And so no one ever did. So we decided, I was able to see that there was another overpass that was closer. So we decided to move to that location. And when we moved to that location, we were able to take in some of the crime scene, but of course it was still a distance away. We were not authorized. No one had told us that we were authorized to go further or closer or even be, in our vehicles to that location. And so after some time, we decided to leave because we couldn't really see a whole lot. And then we found out on Tuesday that OPA was indeed on the scene there. And so that is where we are with that. We were briefed that there were more than one crime scene. And so once we got that information, we realized that we would have to get more information in regards to the initial crime scene, which happened where the officer was shot. And so that is almost in Ashland City, but on the Davidson County side. TBI did notify us that they were not going to be investigating that particular scene. They were only going to be concentrating on the scene where there was actually where the person was, fatally wounded. And so that's where we are with that. And so we haven't collected any information or asked for any records. We were going to start working on that tomorrow morning. Any other questions about that?
Mr. Hughes?
Apologies, my hand is still raised. I was having difficulty putting it down. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Any other members of the board and questions here? Mr. Campbell-Gooch?
I'm not sure if my question is for Director Fisher or for the board, but what do we need to do, or just like what processes do we need in place for the upcoming hurdles as it pertains to the one that hasn't been investigated yet? Like what type of procedures, what type of ideas do people on the board have that we can move forward?
Let me yield here first here, Mr. Campbell-Gooch, to anyone on the board that might have a response here. Director Fisher, let me just be clear, because I feel as a board too, we're kind of positioned where we need to certainly stay as appropriately out of this space while the investigation is taking place, while also making sure that MNCO is getting all the cooperation it needs too. But Director Fisher, is that the case right now?
So So we decided to wait on the records because, of course, when there's a decedent, we decided that we would give them a few days to get all the records and, put them in the system before we ask for the records. Because, we could have asked for the records the next day, So this happened on Thursday. We could have asked for records on Friday, but I just figured we weren't going to get those records on Friday. So I figured we give them a couple of days to get the records uploaded into the system. Of course, some of the records are not going to be available to us because TBI is investigating. But for the shooting that happened, the first location, where this whole situation started, we were going to ask for those records first thing tomorrow morning. And my hope is that we get at least, if we can get started on this, right, with what we would like is the 911 call, the ECC records, which are the CAD reports, and an incident report. If we can get that, that would be helpful for us to get started.
Mr. Kawaguchi, any follow up here?
Yes, I asked that question because I just want to, and I asked that question of the board because I just wanted to gauge where people are, and then also, I think this is the appropriate time to start using the subpoena power.
Any other members of the board have comments, thoughts on that? Dr. Hildreth?
Thank you. First, I want to commend Director Fitcher for her clear, concise, and orderly recitation of the numerous incidents that have happened since the last time this board convened. Second, I support the chair's urging us to be mindful of where we sit in this unfolding event, and my approach answering member Campbell-Gooch's question of what does the board think, that my first question is always, what does Director Fitcher need? Is she getting what she needs? What does she need us to do next? And so I was very heartened to hear her immediate response came down almost with a list of items that you're going to request. What I would like to suggest at this point with respect to that particular strategy, Director Fitcher, is if you and your staff would make sure almost that you put that on an aging sheet and indicate what was asked for, when it was asked, and keep track with great certainty of the time of response, lack of response. Because one of the things I do remember from the negotiations of the MOU was a lot of discussion around timeframes. And there were a number of times when the negotiated settlement was, we will relax or go silent on timeframes until we see how things are working out. I think we're at that point. So this is a perfect time with all eyes on the system to see exactly how long it takes to receive conforming and complete response to our requests. So if Director Fitcher and staff will add that to their protocol, I think that we will be well positioned to either find that we're moving forward or to be very clear about what next steps need to be taken when we find ourselves together in a month's time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Any additional comments or follow-up here?
Yes, this is Holloway.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. My thing is, before they remove that crime scene, I think Director Fitcher should be allowed to approach that crime scene before they remove everything, so they can see with their own eyes, see if they can see what took place.
Yes, sir. I agree. I mean, we stayed out there for several hours. And then, we didn't know, of course, that OPA had arrived there because they may have come from a different location and were able to have access to the crime scene. it's in our MOU that we should have the same access as the civilian members of OPA. And so that would be the executive director, who is a civilian. And so in my opinion, we would have been down where we needed to be, at least been able to observe. Of course, you know, they're not going to let us, you know, behind the tape, which I'm not, you know, really concerned about that, but I would have liked to be closer. We weren't anywhere near the crime scene. Like I said, at the first staging location, we couldn't even see the blue lights. I had no idea what was happening. And so, yes, I think that, you know, that's a learning experience for us. And the next time we'll just say, this is where we need to be. And I don't know if, you know, I'm assuming you can make an assumption that the deputy chiefs all know what the MOU says, but I can't determine that. So I think that we just need to, you know, maybe just be a little more assertive in that way.
Well, my thing is, if the OPA come down there, then you should be able to come down there. But it's done by design for you not to be there to see everything.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Mr. Sweeney.
Yes. Have we had any engagement with the TBI as a general matter regarding our role and our role vis-a-vis OPA? I bring it up in the sense that the agent in charge said, you know, this was all kind of new to him. I think, you know, you related something like that, Director. And so it might be of advantage to try to get as high up the chain as we can at the TBI, to actually meet with them rather than just exchanging emails, and to familiarize them with the MOU that we have with the police. If I recall earlier discussions, the police said that if the TBI is investigating, then the TBI will control the scene. So if we have discussions and an understanding with the TBI that, you know, we have the right, like OPA, to be there under the circumstances that are set forth in the MOU, and then we have a copy of the MOU with us when we go to the scene. But we already have this kind of arrangement and discussion and understanding with the TBI. Maybe that will facilitate us getting in and being given the access that we're supposed to be getting. So what about pursuing something like that?
Yeah, I think so. Just to put some context on this, we met with the TBI. That was when Director Whedon was here. And so it might be, I think, a good idea to go back and meet with them again. The gentleman that showed up, the TBI agent in charge, Agent Winkler, I remember meeting him at that first meeting and him giving me my card. I mean, him giving me his card. And, you know, I don't think that would be an issue. I think that if they are willing to meet with us again and we show the new team and tell them what we're going to be doing and how this works, and now that we have an MOU in place, I think that would be a great idea. Because when we met the first time, we did not have an MOU. And so it was in the middle of, you know, a whole lot of other things happening. So it may be worth having another meeting with the TBI director and his team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, without doing that, it just makes greater the likelihood that we're not going to get the access, and a key player, the one who controls the scene, doesn't have the full understanding of what we're supposed to get access to. If we make sure that they're engaged in the process, I think that improves. You know, the same sort of way is on the scene when they identify themselves like they did here, you know, to get a cell phone number so you can call them and say, hey, you know, we're still cooling our heels out here. When do we get in?
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
So I think a more aggressive approach is something that could benefit us. Cooperative, but aggressive.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Any other members of the board here? Director Fisher?
All right. So next we're moving on to the body camera update. So we had our last meeting back in the meeting that was in, I'm sorry, meeting that was in, all right, I'm sorry. We had a meeting, the April meeting. So I sent an email to Deputy Chief Hagar to address questions that the board members raised at that meeting regarding information related to the body-worn cameras, as well as the in-car camera pilot program. Deputy Chief Hagar responded promptly to the questions. I gave you those questions in red. Those were exactly his questions, and he sent them to me in red, and I cut and pasted them to you in red. And I also sent a follow-up email on Friday with additional questions, and I sent you those questions as well to request that an informational or some type of messaging from MMPD be released to the Nashville community to keep them informed of the results of this pilot program. I haven't heard anything back yet, but in fairness, I sent that on Friday afternoon. During the May 22nd meeting that I also had with General Funk, and I asked him questions about the body cameras, he extended an invitation to the board and the MNCO team. He extended an invitation to come and view the body-worn camera footage. They have set up viewing stations at the Metro Courthouse in the Birch Building. And he said that he would welcome any of us to come over and to see how their body cameras interface with what they have set up. And I told him that we would definitely love to do that because I'd like to see the body cameras in real time and see what type of angles they have and just how they're working, as well as how they're working in conjunction with the in-car cameras. And he also gave us a point of contact if we ever needed body footage to review body cameras, footage from the body cameras. They're not necessarily releasing them because they're showing us at their viewing station, which is protected, and they don't have to redact anything. So we would see an unredacted version of the body camera footage. And so I just wanted to make certain that I extend that offer to the board as well, because he said that that is available to you. And if you have any questions in regards to the questions and the answers, just let me know.
Okay, let's pause here. Any members of the board here? Director Fisher, let me just ask, if someone wants to accept that invitation, what are the steps there? They reach out to you to then coordinate, or
yes,
how does it work?
Yes, you reach out to me to coordinate, and we will get in contact with Mr. Ladd from the DA's office, and he would set it up for us. And so I would just walk with you, or we could go, we could all go over there at any time.
And I'm assuming also here, so are members of the MNCO staff, are they kind of been scheduled out, or your executive team, leadership team, or what are the plans there?
So we haven't really discussed it since we just, he just made that offer on Friday afternoon, but I think that the investigators will go, and then I think that we all can go and take a field trip when it's available, but I don't know about the social distancing issue yet. So maybe it'll be a few of us at one time, a few at another time. But yeah, we definitely want to take him up on this offer because I'm interested in seeing, the actual footage, the unredacted footage, and also how the actual body camera is, works in, that works with the in-car camera, because they kind of work in unison. And so I want to see how that operates. And so I think that we'll probably start scheduling that stuff next week, maybe.
Okay. Any other members of the board here have any comments, questions on this? Not, Director Fisher?
And then the last thing on my report is the budget. So the last time we met, I think Mr. Sweeney asked us about the budget, and at that point we hadn't received any notification about budget changes. But after that meeting, shortly after that meeting, we received something from finance that said that our operating budget was being decreased by $37,700, that our rental contract was renegotiated, extended 1 year, and that was a savings of $2,700. And then there was this elimination of travel, and that's kind of like agency-wide across metro agencies, that they were, like really, they had eliminated travel. And so a portion of our travel budget was $35,000. And so that is how they came up with the $37,700. And that was actually, that $37,700 was actually what we were over than the normal operating budget of $1.5 million. So at this point, it doesn't seem like it will have a significant impact on our regular operating budget.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. Yes.
Thank you, Director Fitchard. Thank you again for your report, all this information. And I appreciate it. And to echo Dr. Hildreth's point here, it's important. Every single word and point that you shared with us is important. So thank you for the diligence here. Any other questions, comments here on the Director report, Executive Director report before we move forward to the agenda?
And I want to add one thing. Relationships work when both parties want to work collaboratively towards an expected end or goal, that when we work in collaboration. So, and I just want to make it clear that we are here because the Nashville community saw the opportunity and need for better communication, transparency, and accountability with the MNPD and its relationship with the community. And so we are here for that. We want that as well. And I would like to get this records thing, resolved as quickly as we can so that we can move forward on the work that we have to do for this community.
Thank you, Dr. Fitchard. Mr. Campbell-Gooch and then Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Dr. Fitchard and the rest of the staff for being patient and remaining diligent in the face of all of this road blocking and walls. And I also want to say that I'm willing to be as forceful as possible with making sure that you all can work and do their job effectively and maintain the public safety for community members. So I just wanted to make sure staff heard me say that, and that's just like a personal dedication to this organization.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes, Director Fitchard, can you share with us a copy of the letter that was sent to Bob Cooper regarding the records and the records issues?
Yes, sure. We'll send that out. Todd can send that out. He has that letter. He can send it out.
Okay. Mr. Whitson.
I just wanted to ask, once again, to thank Dr. Fitchard for her work and to just echo what she said about we're here because the community wanted this. And I was curious as to what the community could do to make sure that they are holding other parties accountable for what it is that they asked for. Like, how can the community provide that, apply that pressure and make their voices heard to other parties?
Hi. So I think that, the community support is super important. I think that, I think sending something to Mr. John Bunton, letting him know that the community is standing behind us and that they want this resolved, I think is important. And I think that he's our liaison. And so I think that he would be the person that the community can email with any questions and in any input.
Very good question.
Thank you.
Important question. Good answer. Sorry, Mr. Witzel. Thank you for raising that. It's important. Any additional points here, questions? Okay, if not, thank you, Director Fitchard. We'll move forward to the policy advisory report proposal. And I believe here, I think I see Liz here with us.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
How are you? Apologies. Good afternoon. You have the floor.
Great. Can everyone hear me?
We sure can.
Great. So thanks for taking the time to review this policy advisory report proposal. This is on law enforcement accessibility and community outreach in limited English proficient, deaf, and hard of hearing communities. I know we're running a little short on time because we have a few more items on the agenda. So I just wanted to quickly highlight some things about the proposal and then open the floor to the board for any questions or concerns you may have. So this policy advisory report really came from the remaining recommendations and concerns that were raised from the community, from the immigration enforcement report, and some of the concerns that community members raised around communication, language interpreting, and community outreach on the part of MMPD. And so in thinking about how to move forward with those concerns, Dr. Verlier and I felt that it was important to make this report proposal a bit more inclusive and not just focused on the immigrant community or Spanish-speaking immigrants in Nashville, but opening it up to anyone who might be limited English proficient and other members of the community that might be deaf or hard of hearing and have some challenges in communicating with MMPD and how that might affect the accessibility that they have to law enforcement, and to really see what kind of community outreach is being done in those communities. One thing I did want to highlight, backtrack to the study. So we want to focus on the types of community outreach and also look at the training curriculum, the policies, procedures that are in place already regarding communication with these community members, and how those might be improved by looking at best practices from other researchers, law enforcement agencies, and other oversight organizations across the country. We're also looking to the Human Relations Commission here in Metro that has done some work about language access in Metro government. And so I also wanted to highlight that this scope of the research might be impacted by COVID-19. Obviously, we're working remotely. Any communication that we're doing with community members or with law enforcement officers, that will all have to be remote for now. But I also conducted some interviews for the last report over the phone, so I don't think that'll be a huge issue. Where we might be more limited is in not being able to attend outreach events that MMPD might be hosting under normal conditions, but that are not taking place right now, to keep everybody safe with social distancing. So we may see some impact on the timeline of this research and when it's best executed. And that is my highlights as far as the proposal, and I will open up the floor for any questions or concerns you may have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sweeney.
A couple things. As far as defining the group that we're going to inquire of, is there an issue with the blind or the sightless as well as the deaf and hard of hearing, as far as those also with limited English skills?
I think that might be something that comes up as we, if and when we move forward with this research. The preliminary research I did to write this proposal was really coming from the Metro Human Relations Commission and a report that they published on language access specifically in Davidson County. But I think as I dig deeper into law enforcement and communication with certain communities, that might be another community that would be added to the fold.
Okay. It just strikes me as it's part of the similar scope that we may want to consider as part of it. Also, in looking at the various methodologies and data and such, I don't see us looking at other communities and what they're doing. are we going to be looking at other communities too and how they deal with these issues?
Other communities in law enforcement and other communities?
Other towns, other cities?
Yes, yeah, we will be looking at that.
Okay. And then on the community input, how do you envision going about the community input in the sense of doing a survey with kind of statistically validated information or self-selection through interviews? What's the process? Because I'm a little concerned that on the earlier report, there was a limited number of sources of information that were then the basis of certain recommendations. Like there were a handful of individuals and a handful of incidents. And I'm wondering, what is the consideration for getting, broad input?
That's a fair concern. We have been offered help from the Metro Human Relations Commission. I'm sorry, tongue twister. They did research for their report, and they have researchers and data that they have offered to share with us as a jumping point for this. I think that as we dig deeper to what they did with their survey, that might help us formulate a plan as far as like creating some sort of survey. We also want to make sure that we reach out to law enforcement as part of community input. That's something that we didn't really do in our earlier work as we were still negotiating the MOU and weren't really clear on communication and research involvement there. But I think that we'll have a better involvement or inclusion of law enforcement members as well as members of the community. And I think that working with the researchers at the Metro Human Relations Commission will help us understand their scope of their study and how we may be able to build on that in order to get a more comprehensive pool of input.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm also grateful. Thank you so much to the team that put in so much hard work in helping to put together this proposal. As an individual who works with on a regular basis, other folks who are from a variety of different communities, but also for those who have been impacted by, who are deaf and hard of hearing, I'm very excited to see that there's an effort being made to provide greater equity and greater access and communication with law enforcement. And I think that this really could be a great opportunity to help integrate members of the community who otherwise would be left out and forgotten. And so I'm really, really excited to see the effect of doing this, not only including individuals who speak different languages, but also those who have different abilities. And so having access to and communication with communities that are deaf and hard of hearing, that may have sighted challenges and so forth, certainly helps us to get further in our mission, create greater communication and better relationship with all members of the community. And so I just wanted to take an opportunity to say thank you so much for the effort and hard work that you're putting into making sure that we're being very inclusive of all members.
Thank you, Member Hughes. I will definitely be calling you for some advice.
Certainly, happy to provide it.
Thank you.
You said it before I could. That's a good important. Anyone else here with a question or comment here? Okay. With that, I believe here, and you will correct me here, it's where we need to take a vote here. Need to approve the request here before us, the proposal. Is there a motion?
I'd move.
So moved.
Heard that was in unison. Could you do it one more time for me?
Andres, I move to approve the proposal to go ahead with the research policy analysis report.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Anyone else second? Anyone second?
I would second that.
I heard Mr. Hughes. Is that you?
Certainly.
Okay, Mr. Hughes second. Any focused discussion here? Okay, all those in favor here, we'll take a roll call vote here. Mr. Campbell Gooch,
Aye.
Mr. Goddard,
Aye.
Dr. Hildreth, Dr. Hildreth.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Holloway,
Aye.
Mr. Hughes,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Ms. Ross. Unable to hear Ms. Ross here. Mr. Sweeney
Aye.
and Mr. Witzel.
Aye.
Thank you. I vote as aye as well. Thank you very much. Motion carries. Thank you again. It's incredible work. The DNI and me was extremely excited to read this. In fact, I was talking to Dr. Valier about it, and he was like, "That's not what I'm here to talk about, Ashley." So that tells you just how excited I was to read this proposal as well. So congratulations on what we know will already be well-deserved and important information for the community. With that, we'll move to Dr. Valier here to discuss the criminal justice and COVID report.
All right, thank you. Mr. Pinkley, could you go ahead and share the screen?
Just 1 second. It should be passed over to you now.
All right. Chair Davis, I'm always happy to have all these conversations with you. But today I'm going to be talking about the info sheet that we have sent around to the board, and I've had several conversations with board members. And I want to first say thank you for all of your feedback and input. It's very helpful for me to have those conversations with the board members. So one of the things that's come up in conversations with community oversight peers from around the country, as well as in conversations I've been having, is how do we understand the impacts that COVID-19 has had on the criminal justice system? One of the concerns that we've seen in the COVID-19 crisis is that people who are incarcerated are becoming ill at extremely high rates, and many of the major outbreaks have happened in detention facilities, including at Turner Trousdale, in Nashville, and as well as Bledsoe County. So jails and detention facilities are a key source where we need to be addressing the potential of people becoming ill and dying. So in that vein, we decided to pursue some information for the community about how the jail population has changed in Nashville and some of the correlates of that as for arrests. So in a 6-week period in Nashville, the jail population declined 22%. So from March 15th through the end of April, there was a 22% decline in the jail population. And Nashville around this time has been hit by multiple crises, from the tornado on March 3rd, and then the Safer at Home order went into place March 23rd. So over this period, we've had quite a bit of challenges, but from this graph, and the red line is 2020, the gray line is 2019, you can see that the 2020 figures are very close to the 2019 numbers, but around March 15th, they start declining very substantially. And if we look a little bit closer at the different types of people who are incarcerated in Davidson County, people who are held in jail come from a couple different types of people with charges or who have been convicted. So many people are held pre-trial, so they've not been convicted of the offense that they are being charged with, but they're being held prior to their court date, often with a bond set, a monetary value that they would have to pay in order to get out of jail. Some of these categories have fallen more than others.
So I'm going to highlight a few categories. Pretrial misdemeanors, so people who are being held pretrial in charge of the misdemeanor, that's fallen 56%. Probation violations for both misdemeanor and felonies have fallen 46% for felony probation violations and 55% for misdemeanors. And these are mostly technical violations. For instance, missing a probation meeting with a probation officer or failing to pay probation charges or fees. And also sentence misdemeanors. So people who have been sentenced with a misdemeanor charge, which holds a sentence of less than 1 year, that declined 60% in a 6-week period. So those are some large declines. But there's also some categories that have not experienced declines at the same rate. So people who are being held pre-trial who have been charged with a felony offense, that's only decreased 11%. Locally sentenced felons. So these are folks who have been sentenced on a felony charge. Usually this charge is a short sentence. That has fallen 14%. And then state sentenced felons. So these are people who have been sentenced to a felony charge and are in for longer than 1 year, but have not yet been transferred to Department of Corrections custody, either for overcrowding reasons or for other reasons why they may not go into a TDOC facility. That's only fallen 7%. That is, for folks who have sentenced, a judge is required to let them out, or if someone is being held pre-trial, in order to change the bond amount, a judge would have to change that. But there's a series of a pathway where we get to this population. I wanted to talk about this, and in the report, we lay out the process that leads to this jail population. This includes the police. And we can start from a call for police service. When someone calls for a police service, a police officer arrives, and if an offense has occurred, they take an incident report and they record that offense. If they have probable cause for an arrest, they then have to have the decision of whether they can make a custodial or physical arrest, and which is required if there's a felony offense, but is optional with a misdemeanor offense. So there's an alternative where they can issue a misdemeanor state citation instead of arresting somebody and taking them to booking. They're also able to use alternatives to arrest. So they're able to issue warnings or other alternatives instead of arresting the person and taking them into booking. One of the directives, the roll call trainings that was issued by the police department on March 18th, I believe, was the maximization of using alternatives to arrests and citations in lieu of arrest. And this is to reduce the amount of people who are being booked into jail and who would then be exposed to confined spaces where they would potentially put others or be at risk themselves of becoming infected. So if an officer is required to make a custodial arrest, they would then book the person into jail, which is considered a jail admission. Upon admission, they can be released from jail either on their own recognizance or have a bond set, and they can meet the requirements of the bond, which is usually a monetary amount. If they cannot pay that bond amount, they would then be added to the jail population, and they would be held pre-trial. And so that's how the process that's leading to the majority of the jail population is people who are arrested, unable to pay a bail, or do not have access to, or are not given the opportunity for bail, and then are held until their court date. What we see in Nashville is that misdemeanor arrests declined 58% in 2 weeks from mid-March until the end of March. So around the Safer at Home order, misdemeanor arrests fell quite dramatically, and that decline continued at a slower rate until mid-April. But there have been some increases in weeks since. But this is a quite stark decline. And as was mentioned in the previous slide, underlying this is a decrease in calls for service, changes in how we're going about our lives, and people staying at home. With bars being closed, you're having fewer incidents at bars or restaurants or in tourist areas. So there are many things underlying these changes, but this is a quite dramatic decline, in part due to changes in enforcement and using alternatives to arrest. And when we look at jail admissions and releases, we know many people are being released on the same day where they're being booked into jail. But what we're really trying to understand the jail population is how many admissions are being made, and then how many more releases are being made over the amount of admissions. And if we make more releases than we admit people, then we'll have a declining jail population. So on this graph, which is the daily jail admissions and releases, what you see is the red line is the number of new people being brought in. The releases is the blue line, and when that blue line is above the red line, the jail population will decline. So throughout the latter part of March and into April, you see a large gap between admissions and releases, which means that the jail population will be declining. And it's not just due to fewer arrests and people being booked in, but there's an effort being made to have more people being released than just reducing the number of people being booked in the first place. So what we're working on with this small informational report is trying to inform the conversation. We're not making policy recommendations in this report, but we're asking what's next for Nashville. As we move into reopening the city and with the stepped plan of the mayor in order to move on to the next steps, we think it's important for the community to be involved in understanding what does policing look like after COVID, and what does policing look like as we're in recovery and as we are continuing to have social distancing measures and continuing to try to care for our community, stay safe and stay healthy. What does this look like? And this, I believe, is part of a larger community conversation. And so we'd really like for the people of Nashville to be involved in democratic policing. So having the voice of the people involved in what does policing look like? What does criminal justice look like? And we'll be following this up in the coming weeks with other informational reports that will highlight ways that the criminal justice system, the demand for police services has changed through this crisis. And then hopefully we can help inform conversations moving forward about what does this look like? What alternatives to incarceration are needed? What alternatives to arrest are needed by communities in order to be safe, be healthy, and really thrive. So that's what we've been working on. We'll be releasing the report. I really appreciate all the feedback from board members, and I'd like to open it up to board members for any feedback or comments on the work that we are putting out.
Thank you, Dr. Blair. Any comments, questions here? I see here, Mr. Hughes, is your hand raised there?
It is indeed, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'm very pleased to see that that MNCO, particularly in your staff, Dr. Valier, in the work that you're doing around finding alternatives and making sure that the public is aware of alternatives to policing. I think this also harkens back to some earlier comments from board member Campbell Gooch when he was talking about the ways in which we can re-envision the possibility of not just community-based policing, but of alternatives and ways in which we can get to a greater sense of public safety without necessarily requiring additional police. I think that it's visionary that we're in a position as members of the board to be able to investigate and educate the public about these kinds of opportunities. And so thank you so much, Dr. Valier, for your hard work and dedication. And I'm looking forward to seeing the full report so we can have a clearer understanding of not only the alternatives that are available to policing, but how it is that we can get members of the community involved, helping to determine how we flesh out, provide access to those alternatives. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Mr. Valier, any follow-up here? Okay, Mr. Martinez and then Mr. Campos.
I just wanted to ask, do we have any indication from MNPD about timing, or if there's a timeline of when they were going to revert back to what were the status quo policies?
That's a good question. What the roll call training that they issued did not change any policies. The police department has the discretion, and officers have the individual discretion in all circumstances of whether to issue a citation or a misdemeanor physical arrest, or whether they believe that the situation requires a warning or an alternative to arrest. So that's not a change in policy. What is a change is the explicit focus on maximizing those. So I have not heard that they have not changed back, or they have not reduced the amount that they're asking to use alternatives. And the sheriff has been clear that he wants to maintain a lower population in the jail system in order to reduce the potential of outbreaks. But I do think it's an important question that I think the community really needs to weigh in on. And I think the community is an important piece here of reinforcing the idea that alternatives to arrest are important to maintain as long as possible. And there might not be the alternatives that are necessarily needed right now. And I think that's another component, is that some of the alternatives to arrest may not exist as we need.
Mr. Campbell-Gooch.
I think that was extremely powerful, what you just said, Dr. Valier, especially around the arrest record. The arrest rate went down because police changed their focus. So if you can speak more on what you believe, because I know we don't have records. So if you can speak more on what their focus changed to.
So I think there's a number of things that have led to the decreases in misdemeanor arrests, and it's not just change in focus, but Nashville shut down its major tourist environments, and what I've seen in the data that we're working on follow-up report with is that there's been major declines in calls for service, so the number of calls. There's also been declines in, especially in Central Precinct, in the Broadway area. There's been a lot fewer calls for public intoxication and other misdemeanor offenses that would require a custodial arrest or custodial misdemeanor arrest. But that being said, so acknowledging that there are those shifts, some portion of the decline, and I can't tell you how much, but some portion of that is due to changing changing decisions of whether or not to issue a custodial arrest or a citation. And so I think that's an important piece for future research that I'm planning on looking at, is can we actually determine how much is due to what? But I think really important is understanding that the alternatives exist, right? And there are alternative steps that can be taken. And so as we're thinking about what the future holds, understanding what community needs really are for those alternatives is important forward.
Yeah, this is Holloway. Could I make a comment on that?
Absolutely, Mr. Holloway.
Yep.
At one time, it was based on stats. The work of the officer, how many citations they were doing, how many arrests they were making, the reports and all that stuff like that. But what has changed is the decrease in the employment of officers. We have a need for more police officers. We don't have enough officers working the streets. And with the virus coming around, they don't put that effect on them where they had to bring in so many citations, because everybody is real leery of this virus that's going around. No one wants to catch this virus, but they just want to answer the calls as they come along. But definitely, we stay tied up on so many calls on domestic. We really don't have manpower out on the streets like we did at one time. So that's one reason why your arrest rates and stuff are low, because we get tied up on accidents, get tied up on domestic, some other little minor things, And so we just don't have the manpower to really cover the city like we really should.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Any other members of the board?
Chair, I have just like one more question real fast. So I know we're running up against the time. I think it's very also interesting what you said, Dr. Galil, because we told so many times that the arrest rates are due to violence in our community. So it's very interesting that when we close down certain areas that have more to do with outer people from out of town visiting, that the arrest rates go down. But my question is around pretrial detention, very specifically like cash money bail. If you could speak towards how like that increases arrest or that influences arrest.
So cash bail occurs after the arrest, and there have been some changes in that have happened with the public defender bringing many cases back to court to try to change the terms of bond for some people in order to be able to afford it, with the community bail fund working to be able to pay bonds for people. What I think is really important to point out on pretrial detention is often it is a financial decision or a financial burden that people cannot meet in order to get out of jail. And that I think is a important point, that we haven't seen the very large decline, the same declines in felony pretrial detention that we have in misdemeanors. And I'm sure there's many reasons behind that, but often felony bonds are set very high, much higher than misdemeanor bonds. And, it's important to remember that people who are held pretrial have not been convicted on that charge. But there might be other information in their case that might be behind it, but there should be a focus on trying to understand each individual case and trying to make sure that it's not financial hardship that is leading to incarceration. So pretrial detention has gotten a lot of attention, and I think, and rightly so. And there's an important work happening in the community to try to reduce the impact of pretrial detention on families and communities. So I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Campbell-Gooch, but I think it's an important point And it's an important area that needs a lot of focus. And there's a lot of community groups that are doing really important work on changing the cash bail system.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blair. Any other members of the board? Comments, questions here? Okay. Not, then thank you again, Dr. Blair. Thanks for that thorough report as well. Concluding points on your end here before we move forward?
No, I don't think so. I just want to thank the board for all of their input, and I appreciate all the work you are doing.
Thank you so very much. With that, we'll move forward then to public comment. Executive Director Fisher, do we have a public comment to share, read, or play?
Yes, sorry. We have one comment. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to play it. This is our first time receiving a public comment, so hopefully this comes out the way that it's intended. So just 1 second. Here we go.
Ann Watkins, 615-545-7754.
Just 1 second.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Ann Watkins. My number is 615-545-7754. The officers who did nothing yesterday that were also fired were able to be done so pursuant to a policy that requires them to intervene when they witness excessive forms of force being used by a fellow officer. This is a policy their community fought for. Do we have a policy like that here in Davidson County? If we do not have a similar policy, please address this at your next public meeting so that residents can advocate for one. My name again is Ann Watkins. My number is 615-545-7754. My address is 2429.
Director, Executive, yes. Could you no need for identifying information? Thank you.
I did.
Thank you. So thank you very much. We, per our rules and our bylaws here, we don't respond to public comment. However, Director Fitchard, if you think it's there's an opportunity to just reach out to this member of the public, thank her for her comment, and if there's an opportunity to share any information on a follow-up, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic.
I will.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to new business and announcements. Any members of the board with any new business or announcements? Okay. Just want to make sure I'll pause here. If anyone I happen to don't see or raise hand, feel free to unmute yourself if I'm missing it.
I did want to say that I invited Mr. John Bunton to our next board meeting, which is in June the 24th. And so hopefully he will make his presence known at that meeting. So we'll see.
Great. We look forward to welcoming him. And we'll follow up closer to the date. And if, in fact, we can go ahead and send him a calendar invite so it can be protected on his calendar, that'd be great. Be fantastic. Any other additional new business or announcements? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mr. Holloway? I think that was Mr. Holloway. Was that Dr. Hildreth that seconded?
Correct.
Thank you. With any focused discussion? Okay, we'll go in order. Mr. Campbell Gooch? Mr. Campbell Gooch?
Aye.
Mr. Goddard?
Aye.
Dr. Hildreth?
Aye.
Mr. Holloway?
Aye.
Apologies. Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Ms. Ross. Mr. Sweeney.
Aye.
And Mr. Witzel.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair Davis, I vote aye as well. The motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:21. Thank you, everyone.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.